All right, we are back with another pick'em video. It is Tuesday, March 18th in the NBA. Crazy day last night. We're going to go over the recap of yesterday's picks and yesterday kind of just as a whole. And we have a 4-game slate today. So I'm actually just going to go through every game, kind of just point out what I'm seeing on those games. You guys can ultimately decide what you like in them. I will go out and say, hey, these are the plays that I will probably be playing or at least looking farther into. But that's what we're going to do today. Only 4-game slate. NBA is absolutely crazy right now. I know everyone's saying it, but it's just true. So we are going to go over the recap of yesterday's picks. We are going to go into the injury news for today, like always, and then we'll get into some plays, but really just go through all the games today and what we got going on in there. So hopefully we find some sort of edge on some guys that might be getting some more minutes, because obviously there's injuries like always, and some crazy stuff's been happening. We're gonna go over that. So if you're new around here, definitely go ahead and subscribe, leave the video a like, comment something down below. Let's get into it. All right, so jumping into the recap of yesterday, we talked about 4 picks. Nikola Jokic ended up not playing, neither did Jamal Murray. They rested a lot of guys and still got the win over the Warriors, big win over the Warriors. We're going to talk about that in a second here. But yeah, he didn't play. Denny Avdija over 12.5 rebounds, assists. He only ended up playing 10 minutes in the second half, blowout in that game. And then the other 2 picks, Zion was a push. Malik Beasley didn't get there either. I think he ended with 11 on pretty bad shooting. This was a 46-point blowout. Zion was in the same game, down pretty much 30 plus the entire game, and he doesn't play the final 10 minutes of that game, and he had 6 rebounds for a while going into that fourth quarter too. So kind of a wash on the video picks overall, but again, you can kind of see what's happening in the league right now, and it's really, really hard to predict. That's just like what it is at the end of the day. Here, I just typed up kind of some things I saw over the course of yesterday. How about all the ejections yesterday? And it wasn't just one game. Gobert and Nembhard wasn't the same game. Bruce Brown got ejected. Fred VanVleet, Jared Vanderbilt, Soham, all ejected. That's 4 different games with, I don't even know, 5 different ejections, 6 different ejections. That's crazy. You don't see that every day. Then we had 5 blowouts in a 10-game slate. Insane. Some of them were 40-point blowouts. And then we had 2 overtime games. We had some crazy games. A lot of players, or a lot of games that shouldn't have been close, like the Pacers literally sitting their entire starting lineup and then playing very well against the Minnesota Timberwolves. Obi Toppin looked insane yesterday. And then the other game was the 76ers going against the Houston Rockets, a game that should have been a blowout. That one that should have been a blowout wasn't. That game in overtime. Quentin Grimes is a beast. Trey Murphy tore his labrum. Sabonis hurt again. Obi Toppin dropped 34 points in that overtime victory. He was awesome in overtime. Aaron Gordon had 38 points with everyone sitting for the Denver Nuggets. He looked like LeBron James out there pretty much. And then Quentin Grimes, 46 plus points again on the Houston defense this time. Just absolutely insanity in the NBA over the course of yesterday. And this is not out of the ordinary for what we've been seeing the last week or so. And unfortunately, I think it's going to be like that for the next few weeks here, as some teams are really fully tanking and other teams are just not like playing guys that wouldn't even be in the lineup. And these guys are NBA players for a reason. Sometimes they can catch these guys off guard. Perfect example of this is yesterday was the Pacers going up against the Minnesota Timberwolves. And you have guys like Obi Toppin going crazy because these are guys that don't usually get 30 plus minutes in a game, and they can do things like that. So that's the world in the NBA right now, unfortunately. But I think we will see some angles coming from certain guys that hopefully we can try to predict these guys getting a whole lot of minutes. The problem there is we don't know the injury news until like very close to game time a lot of the times. So that's what we're dealing with. That's what we're going to go into for today. That's why I'm kind of just going to go over the games for today and see what I like, and hopefully find some plays. I haven't actually made some plays yet, but yeah, that's what we're going to look through. You'll get an idea of how I use Props Madness in the tool, and that's it. So let's get into the injury news, and then we'll get into some plays here. All right, so jumping into the injury news and the 4-game slate here. Atlanta versus Charlotte's going to be the first game. Trae Young, probable tag. LaMelo Ball, as of right now, probable tag. I would not be surprised if he just gets yanked from the lineup, especially because Miles Bridges is going to be sitting on this one. Now, if LaMelo plays, I love his matchup here. He hasn't been good. His line's very high. But at the same time, without Miles Bridges in the lineup, he shoots a million times pretty much. And even with Miles Bridges shooting a whole bunch, his shots haven't been, going away. He still gets a lot of them up. So if he can get, 22, 23, 25 shots against the Atlanta Hawks defense, I don't see a way that he almost doesn't get his points line here. So he hasn't been great hitting this line lately. And obviously the Charlotte Hornets are completely tanking. No Miles Bridges. I would assume a lot of these guys are going to get a lot more usage because Bridges has been awesome. Jeffries is another guy I want to look at. Josh Green is a guy I always want to look at, especially if LaMelo is a late scratch. These two guys are the main guys I would look at. And then Mark Williams, obviously in a great spot to get some rebounds against this Atlanta team. For the Atlanta side, no LeVert, no Capella, no Nance. Again, Trae Young, probable, should be ready to go. The potential minutes or projected minutes as of right now looks like this. So Onyeka, 32 minutes. Risa Shea could get some extra time here. Niang, Terrence Mann, pretty good matchup for a lot of these guys to score, but a really good matchup for a lot of these Charlotte Hornets to score. So if it can stay close, the spread's 6.5. Spreads don't really mean much to me anymore at this point in the NBA. But LaMelo, Jeffries, Josh Green, all guys that are going to get pretty good minutes for this one, or projected at least, could be a good angle there. For Brooklyn and Boston, no Jaylen Brown. Wouldn't be surprised at all if Tatum sits. Jaylen Brown dealing with kind of a back injury. Tatum probably a little bit more healthy, but even the fact that he's on the injury report right now makes me feel like he might sit in this one. Porzingis had a really good matchup against Brooklyn the other day. The Celtics shoot a lot of threes, but he was just, eating down low. His first quarter points, I think a lot of people are going to be looking at that. I think it's at 5.5 right now. Probably will be the way I play that. The good thing is he came back from that illness and he played 32 minutes last game. And again, he was eating down low against this Brooklyn Nets team. I don't really think shot that many threes or hit that many threes, but he did a lot of work down low against Brooklyn, and their weakness is, defensively in that restricted area. So Porzingis being the biggest guy on the court could be a pretty good move to go to him, especially without, Jaylen Brown or Tatum. Obviously, Derek White, guys like Pritchard are going to get a lot of shots, especially if Tatum doesn't sit, but even with Jaylen Brown out, Derek White, always a guy I want to look at here. Drew Holiday's played pretty well the last few games, but the main guys I'd be want to looking at here is Porzingis, Derek White, and Pritchard. For the Brooklyn side of things, I will never trust D'Angelo Russell again. Projected for 27 minutes. Sometimes he just doesn't get the minutes. Cam Johnson projected for a whole lot of time. Again, Celtics defense, 13.5 point spread. You never know. Celtics are at home here, so they could shoot the lights off in the building, and Brooklyn doesn't see much time. That's kind of why, again, I'm looking at the Porzingis first quarter points being almost the best play on the board right now, even without even looking into it yet. But as of right now, Clowney and Zara Williams is going to be the two game time decisions, but they're probable, so pretty healthy Brooklyn Nets squad. For Milwaukee and Golden State, Seth Curry is going to be the talk of the town here, just because Steve Kerr came out and said, I might have to rest Steph Curry. He's been carrying us the last month of the season. And he's been dealing with some back injuries, going through warm-ups. He's said it. He's mentioned he doesn't feel completely healthy. And we saw the Lakers do this with LeBron. The Lakers want to be winning games right now too, but they also want LeBron in the playoffs ready to go. So as the Warriors are looking for playoff positioning, an unfortunate loss yesterday. They're the only team on a back-to-back today, I believe. So an unfortunate loss yesterday to the shorthanded Denver Nuggets put Steph Curry in more of an awkward situation. If they win that game, I'd say he pretty much almost guarantees sits against the Milwaukee Bucks here. But at this point, I don't really know if he's going to play. But it could be, worth a gamble because Steve Kerr literally came out and said it. Maybe Curry does play and plays less minutes. Maybe Curry doesn't play. And then you're looking at some other guys to be in a better position to score the ball. Moses Moody been getting a ton of time. Jonathan Kuminga coming back in the lineup. He's been playing pretty well in limited minutes. And then this Milwaukee defense isn't amazing. 3-point spread. This is it in Golden State. Could definitely be a spot to look at some other, role players on the Golden State Warriors side of things. Milwaukee and so for the Milwaukee side of things, we got Damian Lillard going to be a probable tag. Giannis going to be a probable tag. We see that a whole bunch. Bobby Portis still out with his suspension. Projected minutes for this team, starting lineup obviously going to get a whole lot of run. Did a little bit of a difficult defense for, interiorly above the break threes. So any mid-range guys you might want to be looking at. Giannis has a tough interior defense, but they also, play pretty well on the above the break threes, spot up shooting and things like that. So maybe it's a Giannis show just going down low on guys like Draymond Green and Quentin Post. Want to be looking a little bit farther into that one. But yeah, the biggest read here is Steph Curry potentially sitting. Could be a good spot to look at guys like Moses Moody, Kuminga, maybe even Jimmy Butler here against the Milwaukee Bucks, who he's got a pretty good history with. Cleveland and the Clippers here. This could be game of the night, potentially. If the Warriors start Steph Curry, that might be. But another pretty good game here in the sense that, two good teams going up against each other. As of right now, no notable injuries for the Clippers. So that's good to see. Projected minutes for this team. Harden obviously going to get as much as he can handle. Kawhi's been playing a whole lot of time. Zubac, those guys are all there. And then Norman Powell going to be in the lineup here, which is great for something like James Harden assists, especially if he doesn't have a great scoring matchup, which could be a little bit difficult for him here today. And then Evan Mobley, Defensive Player of the Year type of candidate. Game time decision as of right now. We'll see if he plays. If he doesn't, obviously, big usage boost for some of these other guys. But the main guys in the guard position, Garland, Mitchell should be ready to go for this one. So 4-game slate. Wanted to dive a little bit deeper into these games just because we can. Not like 10 games to kind of try to digest here. We can really specify and focus on these 4 games and try to get the best reads possible for what we know as of right now. All right, so jumping into Props Madness here. This is a tool we use every single video. Going to be a great video for anyone that's using Props Madness and might want a little, guide of how to use it, because I haven't looked at the board too in depth just yet. So we're going to be going through these filters, going through these games, kind of seeing, fresh and raw how I look at these games in certain angles using these filters. It's an awesome tool. Definitely check it out if you haven't already. Code in the description down below. Use code RICH. You get a free week trial, which is an awesome right there. But you're also going to get 25% off your first month or your first year. And yes, they do have WNBA here, which I'm definitely excited to look into. A lot of load management in the NBA. For the WNBA, it's definitely less. There's a lot less games. We know kind of who's expected to play. The minutes and certain things like that are a little bit more consistent, and definitely going to give us a really big angle if we can look at, season shot charts and player type analysis, similar types of players and all these different filters. Very, very excited to use this for WNBA, which of course I'm not as knowledgeable in. I definitely followed it the past 2 years a little bit more than normal. NBA is my bread and butter. Obviously, you can just tell by the way that I speak about it. But excited to follow the WNBA and really get into the nitty gritty with it. So definitely check out Props Madness. And the first guy I want to look at is going to be LaMelo Ball. Now, this might be at a play I end up saying, hey, this is one I'm going to go with. But he hasn't been hitting this line in forever, pretty much. But what I do like to see is he's getting really close. The big news here is no Miles Bridges. In games without Miles Bridges, he's played 7 of them so far, and he's over in every single one. And he's not just over, he's crushing this. 30-plus points in all these games. 31 is his lowest, 50 points is his highest, a lot of 35-point games. So he's got a great, history of playing well without Miles Bridges in the lineup. Now, this hasn't happened since November, and LaMelo definitely maybe losing some minutes here. You can see a lot of these minutes, 40-plus minutes. The lowest we're seeing here is, 33? And the highest we've seen lately is 36. He's projected for 34, though. So if he does go out and play, he's got a really, really good matchup to score the ball. He loves to shoot threes. You can see similar types of players going over their line pretty well. He did have 25 on a 25.5 line, so hooked on his points line back on March 12th, just 6 days ago. But you can see pick and roll ball handling, transition, free throws. Really well, love what I'm seeing there. And the first thing I'd want to look at is his field goals attempted, because his field goals attempted haven't been low, but without Miles Bridges in the lineup, he's averaging 21 in the season. This goes up to 30 shots a game without Miles Bridges. And again, yes, back in November, that's why it's kind of hard. Wish this was like, we had this, this was a December game or something like that, because he hasn't been hitting this even close to this. But you can see his field goals attempted. They're not like going away completely. 18 shots here, 21 shots here, 21 shots here. He just hasn't been shooting well, but without Miles Bridges, he's going to have the main load of the offense, a guy that's not, shy from shooting, and literally 30 shots a game without Miles Bridges in the lineup. If he's going to get that many shots, you can see this, 22 plus shots. Let's go to that. And we're going to see a 77% hit rate in some of these games a little bit earlier. March 5th, we had a game against the Timberwolves, much better defense, and he was able to go over there. So LaMelo, definitely the guy I'm going to be looking at. I don't know if a lot of people are going to be on this because of his recent form. I don't know if I'm going to be on this, to be totally honest, until the end of the video when I really get my thoughts together. But 27.5 points, looking pretty good here for a guy like LaMelo in a perfect matchup without Miles Bridges. I got to like what I'm seeing here, and this is something that, with the slim pickings we got on the board, something I'm definitely interested in. Moving along, though, just going to kind of go rapid fire. Mark Williams is another guy I want to look at. His scoring is kind of up and down. Again, no Miles Bridges, but we haven't seen many games where he plays his normal amount of minutes without Miles Bridges because, again, we haven't seen him miss a game since November. This is the closest game you can get to, and this is against the Trailblazers. 31 minutes in that game, and he had 15 points. You can see these games, 11 minutes. This is when Nick Richards was on the team still. This is when he wasn't getting as much time coming back from an injury. I do like to see his rebounding is okay. Jumped to 9 rebounds in that game. It's all the way up at 11.5, and it's heavily favored on the over. This is something I'd want to crush, particularly thinking because he played them 6 days ago and had 14 rebounds. That was a game that I went to his points and assists, and he ended up coming just short. But another good matchup for him to score the ball. Rebounding, the matchup isn't amazing. That's why I didn't go to the rebounds last time, but something I definitely want to look into. Daquan Jeffries is the guy that I might actually end up playing in this one, as opposed to LaMelo, a guy that hasn't been playing extremely well. Daquan Jeffries, a guy that might get more minutes here and in blowout situations or anything, blowout proof. And his 3-point line might be the way that I play this. Obviously, the hit rate on this is not amazing, but he has played, a few games without Miles Bridges in the lineup, even back in November, and he was getting over this 3-point line in 3 of those 4 games. Now he's got an awesome matchup here against the Hawks, and he played this Hawks team. Again, they played just a little bit ago, 6 games ago, and he had 4 threes on 9 attempts, which I love to see. And this is a game with LaMelo. This is a game with Miles Bridges. A lot of guys active. Obviously, Brandon Miller's been out a whole bunch. But Daquan Jeffries and 1.5 threes for pretty good value. I don't mind that, especially with the volume he got in the last matchup. So he's been getting a little bit more time in the court, as you can see. The hit rate goes up when he gets that much time in the court. Projected for 32 minutes. If he's going to get 30 plus, 30 to 36, he's over this in 4 of 7 games. Definitely harder matchups here. Maybe not the Spurs, but the harder matchups are a little bit more difficult to come by. The Detroit Pistons, that's definitely a good defense overall. The Clippers, great defense. And the weakest defense he's seen is this same Hawks team where he had 4 threes on 9 attempts. So Daquan Jeffries, definitely a guy I want to look into. The last guy on the Hornets I want to look into is Josh Green. His form hasn't been awesome lately. Games without Miles Bridges, you can see he's over in what the hell? Okay, at least played 14 games without Miles Bridges. So that's a good note to see. And more recently, he has been scoring. LaMelo Ball's in the lineup, though. So games without or with LaMelo and without him doesn't look as amazing. Assists, rebounds might be a good look at 2.5. Maybe someone I want to look a little bit farther into, see how many minutes he's going to get, but Josh Green also someone to look at. But as of right now, for the Hornets, I'm liking LaMelo Ball's points, and I'm liking Daquan Jeffries to knock down 2+ threes in this one. So that's the angle as of right now for the Hawks side of things. Sorry, for the Hornets side of things. And then the Hawks side of things, you got to start with Trae Young. I was looking at his assists, but I don't like the fact that Karis LeVert's not in this one, a guy that's been assisting really well lately. You can see February 8th was the game that they traded for him, or I think a first game with him. And you can see the assists have been awesome since then. He's a guy that definitely is a good catch and shoot guy. You can see a very mediocre matchup for him to get assists. You can see a very mediocre matchup for him to score the ball here. So I'd probably land on his PRA, if anything, 42.5, obviously pretty high, but he's a guy that's been hitting this pretty well. You can see games without Jalen Johnson, games without Clint Capella, turns into a 58% hit rate. And without LeVert in here, I don't know if there's many games we can go to there. But without LeVert, still over in 4 of 7 games. Definitely, I think, probably the scoring load goes up. Yeah, his assist line hitting at 3 of 7 is scoring here at 4 of 7. And, the Hawks are definitely in a position that they want to be winning this game more than the Hornets do. I don't know if that plays as much a role as people might think, but, they're battling for playoff positioning, play-in positioning. They have that 7th seed locked up right now. They don't really want to drop to that 8th seed because then the Magic will be playing at home in their first play-in spot. I think that's how it works, yeah. But yeah, that's Trae Young to PRA, probably the way that I look at this. Onyeka Okongwu projected for 32 minutes as well. Going to get rid of all these filters, and I want to see his minutes pretty much because he wasn't always getting that time throughout the entire season. Projected for 32 minutes, maybe going to 32 to 35 minutes or so. Over his points line at 66.7%. Very mediocre matchup for him as well. Nothing I'm riding home about at all. You can see head to head, he only scored 7 points against these guys in 31 minutes last time. So that's not a great data point. Looking back at Trae Young, has had 2 pretty good games against these guys, really good games in PRA department. 56 and 54, and then did have a dud back here in November. That was a game Jalen Johnson was still here. So Trae Young, definitely not a guy that hasn't had good success against this team. Another reason why I want to be looking at him. And then Onyeka Okongwu, again, we just saw it in the minutes. Didn't get there last time, but could be a guy, in this many minutes, he's getting this over this line in a whole bunch of games. 30 to 35 minutes over in 66.7%. You can see his assists kind of more hit or miss. You can see he's rebounding a little bit better. Rebounding against this team, though, against this Hornets team, players by position have not been crushing their line, so not something I love to see. So probably another one where I'm probably just looking at his points line here, looking pretty good. I don't know if I'm going to play this, but the hit rate when this many minutes, pretty solid. The problem is the matchup isn't amazing. Going into Dyson Daniels, rebounds and assists is always something I want to look at here. It's at 10.5, pretty mediocre value here, minus 122 looks like on FanDuel. Head-to-head did not go over in any 3 matchups, so that's something I don't love to see, especially because they did play them recently, and that was a 34-minute game. 10 rebound chances, 11 potential assists, so 21 potentials, right around where he should be on a 10.5 line. So nothing really to ride home about there. You can see his scoring. Did he score well? Didn't really score well against that team either. Did play 34 minutes. They won that game by 13. But nothing too crazy for Dyson Daniels. Moving down the line, Zachary Ricochet. He hasn't gotten his lines much at all, but he has been hitting his lines recently in very difficult matchups. This Hornets defense is so mediocre that there's nothing really to superly, really go ahead and attack there. Mo Gay, a guy, 5.5 points, not someone I want to trust here. And in this matchup, he did score 6 points against them. So that's another one. So on the Hawks side of things, nothing too crazy. I'd look at Trae Young's PRA, maybe Onyeka Okongwu to score some points in this matchup. But other than that, nothing really too crazy in a very mediocre matchup for a lot of these guys. So we spent a lot of time in that first game. Just to kind of recap that, the Hornets, I think some guys are in some good spots to go hit their overs hopefully in this one, especially with no Miles Bridges in the lineup. But they're at home. LaMelo's line is high, but without Miles Bridges in the lineup, he shoots a million times. That's kind of where I'm focusing here. LaMelo or Daquan Jeffries, who's expected to get a whole bunch of time, maybe knock down some threes. And then for some underleans, I don't really have any just because this Hornets defense is very mediocre. So nothing I really want to attack in terms of that department. And then guys that you might want to look at some unders, like Onyeka Okongwu has been really good at hitting their overs in that much time. So no underleans, but again, we kind of just broke down what I like to go to in that game. And again, especially because they're on the road, maybe you focus on guys like Trae Young, Onyeka Okongwu, the main guys on that team, and maybe fade a little bit more of the guys like a Shai or some other dudes off the bench. Even though Karis LeVert's not in this one, it's a tougher game to read for sure, but I like some Hornets overs, and I potentially like some Hawks overs as well. For the Nets and the Celtics, that's going to be the next game we look at. Jason Tatum, I'm not going to, it's going to breeze over him just because he's a game time decision right now. I don't know if he's going to play or not, so I'm not going to waste my time. Porzingis would be the next guy I want to look at. Obviously been going over this scoring line or right around it very, very consistently. Did have the plague for a while, so literally missed 8 games with the sickness. Is insane, but came back, played 32 minutes. Great matchup for him to score the ball. You can see interiorly, that's where he did a lot of his damage. Post up, free throws, that's where he was able to do it. Spot up, whatever it might be. Good spot for Porzingis to score some points, which is why I want to look at his points first quarter. 6.5 for minus 115 on DraftKings. I don't know why they don't have an under here. You can get this 5.5 for plus money on a lot of different other books. That's probably where I'd be looking at it. Let's just throw Bet365 out there. 5.5 or plus money. I don't mind this at all, especially considering he's playing at home and he loves playing in the Garden. Over in a lot of straight games at home, and this is a good matchup for him to score the ball. Something I definitely want to look into is his first quarter points here. That'd be the first thing I want to look at. If you want to go to him full game, I don't mind that either, just because he plays really well at home, and could be a lot of guys missing this one. And again, the matchup for him is pretty good. The above the break threes, maybe not as much. He didn't hit many threes in that last game, but he's one of the best, most efficient pick and roll guys, or not pick and roll guys, post up guys. And this is a good spot for Porzingis to do some damage down low. The next guy I'd want to look at here is Peyton Pritchard, and this is probably going to be an actual video pick here. He scored 22 points against this team, and you can see the main ways he scores the ball, spot up shooting and transition. That's what they are weak against. And again, coming off a 22-point game, 14.5 definitely seems a little bit low. We'll see if everyone's at 14.5 or pretty much wherever you find it. So I would play that. I think that's going to be probably one of the only official video picks I do for today. Let's take a look at his matchup here. We'll talk about Jaylen Brown being out, but this is just all games in general. He's got a weak matchup or weak defense in terms of his spot up shooting. This jumps to a 44% hit rate. Then you look at games that he's going up against a good above the break defense. I'm not going to brush over that. They're ranked 4th there, so I'll go ahead and take out the the bottom 15 teams in terms of defending that. It actually goes up to a 60% hit rate. The last thing I'd look at here is, that player type 2, that the transition, they're also ranked 27th. So going to games that, bottom 15 getting out of there, 85% hit rate over in 6 to 7 games. And a lot of these games he's scoring 20 plus. So could be a cool plus money play for Peyton Pritchard to score 20 plus points, especially if Tatum gets ruled out here, but also Jaylen Brown getting ruled out. We only have one matchup with all those different guys out. But without Jaylen Brown in the lineup, he's over in 8 of 12 games. You also point out the fact that he's home over in 3 of 4 games. And just in general, this home hit rate jumps from 37% to 44%. So definitely a spot I'm liking Peyton Pritchard in the matchup against the the Brooklyn Nets. Blowout situation, but also a lot of injuries for the Celtics. Not a lot, but some main guys injuries for the Celtics here. So those would be the 2 guys I probably want to focus on. Derek White, maybe in a good spot here. I don't love his matchup here because he does get a lot of his points in that above the break spot. Spot up shooting here is great, but without Tatum and Brown, probably doing a little bit more pick and roll ball handling, which they are one of the best teams in terms of defending. So Derek White may be a guy you want to look at, but probably not for me. I definitely favor Peyton Pritchard or Porzingis in that first quarter. So that's for the Celtics. That's what I got going on. Then for the Nets side of things, Cam Johnson, 17.5 points. He's projected for a lot of minutes. It's just tough to go to this Celtics defense, who are pretty good. We don't know if Tatum's going to play. Obviously, that's a big blow if he doesn't. Jaylen Brown already ruled out. So for the Nets side of things, to be totally honest, I don't have a reach because they might get they might get blown out. They're away. So I don't know if his hit rate drops off a cliff when they're away. When they lose games, I assume it drops off a cliff as well. Definitely goes down. This is a 13-point spread. So it's hard to go to some players. Maybe you go to a guy like Day'Ron Sharpe, who's been pretty good. 7.5 points is pretty low. Has he played these guys once already? He did. Played 31 minutes, had 9 points there. So if Day'Ron Sharpe gets a little bit more time, see what he's projected for. But again, you got to take into effect that this could be a blowout situation, which we've seen a bunch in the NBA. Day'Ron Sharpe, as of right now, expected for 18 minutes. But again, if this one gets out of hand, he's going to be a guy that's probably going to see more minutes. In games they lose by a whole bunch, looks like it's 50-50. Rebounds, 61%. So maybe you're looking at a Day'Ron Sharpe rebounds line or points and rebounds line. That's what we want to be looking into in these certain types of situations. Guys that are going to get more minutes in blowout situations. But again, at the same time, Tatum sits. You never know. Maybe the Nets come in here and beat Boston in Boston as they're shorthanded. So that's the reads on that game. Moving along to the Bucks and the Warriors now. And I'm going to start off with Giannis here. And I think this might be a game where we see Giannis and Damian Lillard kind of do their thing, score the ball. And I don't think, the Warriors are going to let a lot of these other guys get involved in the offense. And that's what we see pretty much every time they go up against a very good, strong interior defense. They say, hey, Dame, if you can cook us, Giannis, if you can cook us, put your head down and get to the rim. We're not going to let these other guys, do as much damage as what you're doing. So starting with Giannis, looking probably leaning over his 27.5 points line. I don't know if I love his rebound potential or his assist potential in this one, but this dominant scoring zone, that restricted area defense, again, ranked number 1, you'd think that might be a bad thing for him. But no, it seems like he's over this in 78.9% of games. A lot of these games, crushing this line. Some games getting pretty close here, but in a pretty good matchup here. They are away too. I'm curious if that goes up. 87% hit rate in away games when they got a really good interior defense. I really think this is a game that, the Warriors are going to say, Giannis, you can put your head down, you can try to beat us one-on-one, but we're going to get rid of some of these other guys, the Kuzmas, the Gary Trent Jr.'s, the Brook Lopez's, and Giannis is going to have to put his head down and do the work. So really good, strong interior defense. Maybe they run a lot of these guys off the three-point line. You can also see in a lot of these games, I bet, his assist line doesn't go hand in hand with this. That makes a lot of sense because they're making him beat him one-on-one. So Giannis's points line, definitely something I'm looking into, 27.5. The next guy I want to look into is Damian Lillard because he's also going to be a guy that I think they're going to say, hey, if Dame's going to be, going one-on-one with us, this could be a good spot for him. This is one that I probably won't play, but he's probably in a pretty good spot to go over here, even though it looks like a horrible matchup for him in terms of pick and roll ball handling. That's probably why I won't get there. But again, same type of story. If Giannis isn't in the game and Dame's going one-on-one with them, they're going to live with that. They're going to take away these other players. That's kind of my read on the game. And you can see his dominant scoring zone is above the break threes. That's a great defense for it. So we'll actually put that in. So we'll take away those bottom 10 teams. 58% hit rate, but then again, the dominant scoring zone number 2, that's going to be right in the paint there. 23% of his shots come right there. So dominant scoring zone, where's that? DSZ right here too. That's where they're ranked really, really good. If you go back and see the top 10 defenses in that, he's over this in 73% of games, even considering the fact that they're good, above the break 3 defense. So Damian Lillard and Giannis, maybe the main guys are going to be the scorers here. I think I'd probably land on Giannis just because we saw, away games, he carries a little bit more. Interior defense is really good. They're going to let him beat him one-on-one, I think, and could get a good Giannis game in terms of scoring. That's probably the way I would play this. He hasn't played them once this year. Did play him twice last year, had 33 and 23 points, but that was a game they lost by 35. So hopefully it stays close. The hit rate in away games has been awesome. So I think they lean on Giannis. This is probably the one that I would go to in terms of this, and maybe you look at some unders for some of these others. Kyle Kuzma fantasy score for my PrizePicks people on the under has always been a pretty good play. I don't know where that line's at right now, but my read for the Bucks side of things is definitely going to Giannis' scoring. If you don't, for some reason, like Giannis, maybe, you'll lean towards Dame, but he's got a much more difficult matchup in a lot of the ways that he scores the ball. But yeah, Giannis in a pretty good spot here. And then the Warriors side of things, I'm not going to look too, in depth just yet because I don't know if Steph's going to play or not. But they are at home, so I think Kuminga probably in a good spot here. I'm not seeing any lines for him just yet. Moses Moody, another guy I might want to look at. He's been scoring pretty well, but I don't like the drop-off in minutes last game. That's with Kuminga coming back in the lineup pretty much. So with Kuminga, I don't know if I can trust Moses Moody's minutes. But if Steph Curry sits, that's going to be a little bit of a boost for him. He did go over his points line last time they played in terms of his assists and his rebounds. Didn't get there, so I'd probably lean on his points, which is what he's been doing most of the time. And again, it's just hard to trust his minutes, especially because we don't know if Steph Curry is going to play or not. Another guy I'd want to look at, again, like I mentioned, is Kuminga. That'd probably be the guy I want to go to. He's been getting decent minutes as of so far, and without Steph Curry in the lineup, he definitely gets a huge usage boost. Jimmy Butler, a little bit harder to read. Yes, he's gone over in the 2 games so far this year. Neither of those games on the when he was on the Warriors, and without Steph Curry, we have no history without him being on the Warriors without Steph Curry. So definitely harder guy to read there. So the guys I'd want to look at for the Warriors as of right now, probably Kuminga and maybe Moses Moody taking a nod. Draymond Green assists is something I wanted to look at, because I thought his assist would drop off a cliff without Steph Curry, but it's actually pretty solid still. He did stay under last time against the Milwaukee Bucks, but he had 5. So the Warriors, not as many reads as I like for the Milwaukee side of things. Kuzma unders potentially, Giannis to score some points, Damian Lillard to score some points. I like both those in this game. And then finally in the last game here, we got the Cavs and the Clippers. The guy I'd maybe want to look at here is Ivica Zubac over his 11.5 rebounds. Getting great value on this, heavily favored on the under a lot of books, minus 102 on FanDuel as of right now. So pretty good value on the over here. He's been pretty good hitting the over, 48% of games. If you see home games, which they are, 62% hit rate, which I do like to see. You can also see Norman Powell back in the lineup. Not sure how many minutes he's going to play. He didn't look great in his return, but with Norman Powell, with Kawhi Leonard, still over this in 62.5% of games. This is a weak post-up defense in terms of scoring, but you can see also similar types of players really just positionally have been rebounding pretty well against this team. Similar types of players have also been okay. 64% of players that play and rebound similarly to a guy like Zubac have been going over this line, but I do like to see, Day'Ron Sharpe, Sims, Lopez, Bam Adebayo, Edey, a lot of guys going over their rebounds lines against this team. So without Evan Mobley potentially in this lineup, that's going to be a boost for some rebounds for a guy like Zubac. He's been getting the time on the floor. This is definitely a big game for both these teams. Not as much the Cavs, honestly, as the Clippers. So hopefully we get some scoring here. Cavs on the road, maybe a little extra boost here. So Zubac at 11.5 rebounds could be a pretty good spot. I could also look at his rebounds and assists I just looked at. So 13.5 rebounds and assists with Norman Powell, with Kawhi Leonard in the lineup, still 62.5% hit rate. So if you want maybe a little bit of an easier line to hit in terms of the books, maybe 13.5 rebounds and assists is a good way to do this. And then in terms of assists going up to players, positionally certain players definitely getting some assists against this Cavs team. So it could be a good spot to look at there. You can see his assist zone doesn't look as amazing here, but with these guys in the lineup, he's definitely able to chip in with 2 assists in a lot of these games, especially considering the minutes he's projected to get today, which should be a whole lot. He's getting 33 projected minutes, so normal amount of time with a lot of these guys on the floor. Let's see rebounds in that much time. 33 minutes projected. Let's give him 31 to 35 minutes and see what we got going on there. 70% hit rate. So the rebounds line, definitely something I'm looking at too. Rebounds and assists, the exact same. So however you want to look at that, I think Zubac's in a pretty good spot here. I was also looking at James Harden assists. His points have been awesome lately. Really weak isolation defense. So definitely a spot to potentially look at Harden. The problem is if you go to his isolation defense and knock out those good teams in terms of isolation defense, again, they're ranked number 30th, so dead last. So looking at the bottom 10 teams in isolation defense, the hit rate actually goes down if you consider the fact that Norman Powell and Kawhi are here. It's actually only a 1 of 5 hit rate, so it might look like a good chance for James Harden to score some points, but not really. This defense is really good. I don't want to look at an under just because I know he plays a lot of ISO ball and seemingly a good matchup for him. And he's been really good lately, but as of right now, I wouldn't take the over here for him either. That's why I kind of wanted to pivot to the assists, because with Norman Powell and Kawhi in the lineup, the assists has been awesome. He's getting a lot of double-doubles in here, but with Norman Powell coming back and looking like crap, he hopefully comes back and maybe looks a little bit better. Maybe it's a good spot to go some assists, but then at the same time, you can see similar types of players not hitting their assists very often. So for the Clippers side of things, I think I'm definitely leaning Zubac. I can't really trust Norman Powell. Can't really trust Kawhi at this point. James Harden seemingly in a good matchup to score the ball, but not really when you actually look farther into it. And then the assists look awesome with Norman Powell and Kawhi, but definitely a harder matchup for him to score to get some assists. So maybe you want to be looking at some bench guys. I'm not going to look too far into them. This would be something I probably do later. But for the main guys here, Zubac's rebounds and assists, and a pretty good matchup to score the ball, to be totally honest, in the post-up spot. Could be a good look at PRA. I probably land those rebounds or his rebounds and assists. And then finally for the Cavs side of things, it's harder to read because we don't know if Evan Mobley is going to play or not. Darius Garland's a guy that I'm looking at. You obviously see his points hit rate here. You can see his points and assists hit rate's really good, but I'm actually looking at the points and rebounds just because, potentially Mobley doesn't play this one. In games without Mobley, he's over this in 75% of games, definitely gets a rebound boost. And against these tough defenses, he's able to rebound the ball pretty well. So 75% hit rate without Evan Mobley, that's going to be pretty, consistent with Donovan Mitchell and with Jared Allen as well. So tough to go to an under here, even though it's a great defense. But you can see in terms of opponent defensive rankings, the Clippers are ranked number 3. Going to the top 10 defenses, he's over this line in 61.9% of games. So Darius Garland, potentially look here at 22.5 points and rebounds, and especially if you're not going to get Evan Mobley in the lineup, even in these tough matchups, he's over in 3 games there. So Darius Garland, maybe the guy I want to look at here. Donovan Mitchell doesn't do as good in terms of scoring the ball against these tough defenses. You can see his hit rate on this points line, only 38% of the games he's going over against these tougher defenses. Maybe they hone in on him a little bit more, and Darius Garland's able to eat a little bit more. So we could see a situation like that. There's no head-to-head news. We don't know if Evan Mobley's going to play or not. But for right now, I kind of like Darius Garland at 22.5 points and rebounds. That might be the way that I end up playing this. So we talked about a bunch of different plays over the last 30 minutes. That's kind of how I look through the board first initially, and then I go through and find my plays. But for this one, there's so much uncertainty. I'm just going to show you guys pretty much the general recap of what we talked about. I didn't include everything we went over, but definitely some guys that I'm liking in certain spots. These aren't like all official bets for me. I'll probably do that a little bit later, as I kind of said here. But smaller game slate, definitely some guys I'm liking, but the uncertainty in the NBA has just been so tough. But that's how I kind of, hopefully you got a sense of how I look through the board and what I do each and every day. You can see how, when that's a 9-game slate, a 10-game slate, it definitely takes, a lot of time. And this was, broken up and cut up into, only a 35-minute video or something. So, I know some people probably don't love the longer videos. I know some people love the longer deep dives. So hopefully you got some value out of this. But again, tread lightly in the NBA today, even though we talked about a whole bunch of different plays that I'm, decently liking. And here's just the recap of what we talked about. So LaMelo Ball over his points, Daquan Jeffries over the 1.5 3-pointers made, Trae Young over his 42.5 PRA, Porzingis over his 5.5 first quarter points, Peyton Pritchard over his 14.5 points, Day'Ron Sharp over 6.5 rebounds, Giannis over his 27.5 points, Zubats over 13.5 rebounds and assists, and then Darius Garland over 22.5 points and rebounds, especially if Mobley sits. I think this is going to be pretty good value. If you want the actual bets, I think I could probably decipher this right now. It'd probably be Porzingis over his first quarter points. That's plus money. Peyton Pritchard over his points. I like Giannis, the potential to score the points today. And then Zubats over his 13.5 rebounds and assists. Those are probably my 4 favorite ones. Daquan Jeffries is probably creeping up towards one of my favorite ones. Day'Ron Sharp, I just don't know if he's going to get the minutes, but if he does, he's able to, crush this line. Definitely against the Celtics if they get 16 rebounds. That was a game without Claxton, though, so tough to see how many minutes he's going to get. If it's a blowout situation, maybe he doesn't go hand in hand with a guy like like Pritchard getting as much time, so hard to put those guys in the same slip. But hopefully you guys got the value out of it. If you don't even take any of the plays, maybe you kind of see how I dissect the board a little bit more. Obviously, I'm going to spend more time as the day progresses. I'm going to be using DG Fantasy to try to find some DFS platform plays. If you want to check out DG Fantasy, it's an awesome tool. They pretty much just feed you the plays. And at this point in the NBA season, it might be good to just kind of go off with a lot of this EV, take some of the top plays over on things like Dabble, over on things like Betr. I've got codes for all of these different platforms. And essentially what this is telling you, it's saying, hey, this book has this right here at a set fixed price. A lot of these other books are, higher or lower. And, if the market value is saying one thing and they're behind the market value, go ahead and buy that stock for a cheaper price. And when you put it into the optimal, slip type, for Betr, I do 5-mans. For Underdog or Dabble, I could mess around with 3-mans because they got pretty good potential for payouts. They pay 6x rather than 5x like Betr and PrizePicks do. So, definitely checking out DG Fantasy. Link in the description down below if you want 25% off your first month. I think it's code RICH on that. It's an awesome tool to kind of just feed you plays, and especially with March Madness going on, maybe you don't know all those certain type of players. These billion-dollar companies know exactly what these guys are going to do. Not exactly what they're going to do, but they know more about every single sport out there. And again, you can just use the EV to your advantage and bet on guys that you might not know as much about, maybe don't do as much research about, but you're really just buying, stock at a discounted price is the best way I can explain it, and you're just basing it off market value. So DG Fantasy, definitely a good time to definitely check it out. Use code RICH, description down below if you want to check it out. And then, of course, Props Madness, the tool we use throughout the entire video. Really excited to see what this thing can do for WNBA, but for NBA, it's been awesome for us. It's not their fault that it gets a little bit more complicated here. And even so, we haven't been as amazing as we were right before the All-Star break when we were on that crazy run when people were getting, normal time and things like that. But, the last week or so hasn't been amazing. We've been probably, I don't even know what the hit rate is, but we've been, hit or miss on some of these days. We did go in a few runs over the last, 2 weeks or so. It's just getting a little bit more complicated and, harder to predict. And I think you guys can see that with the games and how things are playing out right now. So, yeah, that's going to be the video, a much longer video. Hopefully you guys enjoyed. Check out Props Madness. Check out DG Fantasy if you want to kind of get fed slips in games that are, giving you a good market value. It's a really good way to bet. A lot of professional sports bettors only bet using positive EV, so it's a great tool to check out there. If you want to get access to all my plays as well, and just a really fun community. A lot of people sell picks and they just, give your picks and there's no backlash, or not even backlash, or just talking about it, questions or anything like that. I show my picks in the Discord, and then we have a community where you can talk all the time. People are chatting, sharing ideas. We got some seasoned chefs in there that are awesome. They're always sharing plays. We got guys that are kind of particular in certain sports, guys that like tennis, guys that like soccer, guys that are really excited for baseball. So it's a lot of fun. Again, you get access to all my slips. You get access to other people's slips in there as well, but also the community aspect where you can talk and celebrate your wins together. I don't deal with negativity, to be totally honest. People that are coming at each other for a bad slip or something, you obviously just don't know how this thing works. People are going to give out bad slips sometimes. Everyone does it. We don't win all the time, but when we do, it's an awesome thing, and we've been pretty consistent at month-to-month basis being profitable. So nice longer video, not going to be like this every single time. I thought it was a pretty good opportunity to do it today in a 4-game slate. So tread lightly. I do like a lot of picks out there, but I'm not going to be going too crazy. Baseball right around the corner, so excited to have some more things to bet on, and just going to continue to grind it out. So thanks for watching. Definitely subscribe if you are new. Leave the video a like, comment something down below. It does tell YouTube to push this video out a little bit more when you do that. So yeah, appreciate that. See you in the next one.